The space station Harmony Point floated in the darkness between two great galaxies. It was a place where many species came together, to trade, to talk, and to live. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds walked its metal halls every day. Among them was a Valoran diplomat named Ravana. Ravana was tall and graceful. Her skin was the color of pale silver, and her eyes glowed soft purple. She had served the Valoran Empire for 30 years. She was respected. She was powerful, and she was married to a human. Her husband's name was Teho. Teho was not tall. He was not loud. He was not important by any measure that the galaxy used. He worked in the cargo bays, moving boxes and checking lists. He wore simple clothes. He spoke few words. When he walked through the station, nobody looked at him twice. This confused many people. Why did you marry him? Other diplomats would ask Ravana. He is just a human. He is just a cargo worker. You could have married anyone. Ravana would smile at these questions. She never gave a full answer. She would simply say, "He makes me happy." But the questions never stopped. Neither did the whispers. Valorans were proud people. They had built an empire across 1,000 stars. They valued strength, intelligence, and status. A Valoran diplomat marrying a human cargo worker was strange. Some called it shameful. Some called it a waste. Teho heard all of this. He heard the whispers in the halls. He heard the jokes in the markets. He saw the looks that other aliens gave him when he walked beside his wife. He never said anything. Every morning, Teho woke up before his wife. He made breakfast for her. He prepared her favorite tea. He set out her clothes and made sure everything was ready for her busy day. Then he kissed her forehead and went to work. In the cargo bays, he lifted heavy boxes. He checked inventory numbers. He helped load and unload ships from distant worlds. The work was hard, but Teho never complained. He did his job quietly and well. His co-workers were mostly aliens from different species. Many of them did not understand him. "Why do you not speak more?" a large Kothran worker asked him one day. The Kothran had 4 arms and stood twice as tall as Teho. "You are always so silent. It is strange." Teho looked up at the massive alien. He gave a small smile. "I have nothing important to say," he replied. The Kothran laughed. "Humans are strange creatures. So weak. So small. So quiet. I do not understand why the galaxy lets you leave your little planet." Teho said nothing. He went back to his work. This was his life. Every day was the same. Work, silence, patience. He never argued. He never fought. He never raised his voice. Some people thought he was afraid. Some thought he was stupid. Some thought he simply did not care. They were all wrong. In the evenings, Teho returned home to the small quarters he shared with Ravana. Their home was simple but warm. There were plants on the windowsill. There were pictures on the walls. There was a small kitchen where Teho cooked meals from his homeland. Ravana loved coming home to him. "How was your day?" she would ask. "It was fine," he would answer. "How was yours?" Then she would tell him everything. She would talk about meetings and treaties and difficult negotiations. She would share her worries and her victories. And Teho would listen. He always listened. "You are the only one who truly hears me," Ravana told him once. "Everyone else wants something from me. Everyone else sees my title, my power, but you just see me." Teho took her hand. "That is all I have ever seen," he said. They had been married for 5 years. In that time, Ravana had learned many things about her husband. She learned that he loved gardening. She learned that he could cook food that made her taste things she had never imagined. She learned that he read old books from Earth, stories of warriors and heroes from long ago. But there were things she did not know. Sometimes, late at night, Teho would stand by the window and stare out at the stars. His eyes would grow distant. His hands would move slowly, as if he was holding something that was not there. In those moments, he looked like a different person entirely. Ravana noticed this. She asked him about it once. "What do you think about when you look at the stars?" she asked. Taeho was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I think about the past. About the man I used to be." "What kind of man were you?" He turned to look at her. His eyes were soft, but there was something deep within them. Something old. Something heavy. "I was not a good man," he said. "I came here to become better." Ravana did not push him for more. She trusted him. She loved him. Whatever his past was, it did not matter to her. The man she knew was kind, gentle, and good. But the galaxy did not see him this way. One afternoon, Ravana was walking through the market with Taeho when a group of Valoran nobles approached them. They were young and arrogant, dressed in expensive clothes that showed their high status. "Look at this," one of them said loudly. "The great diplomat Ravana and her pet human." The others laughed. Ravana's eyes flashed with anger. "You will show respect," she said coldly. "Respect?" The noble smiled cruelly. "I am showing respect. To you. But this creature beside you deserves none. He is nothing. A servant. A joke." Taeho stood still. His face showed no emotion. His hands hung loose at his sides. The noble stepped closer to him. "What is wrong, human? Do you not have words? Are you too stupid to speak?" Silence. The noble reached out and pushed Taeho's shoulder. "Answer me, servant." Taeho did not move. He did not react. He simply looked at the noble with calm, empty eyes. "Enough." Ravana stepped between them. "Leave now, or I will report this to the council." The nobles laughed again, but they walked away. They had made their point. They had shown everyone in the market that Ravana's husband was weak. Later that night, Ravana was still angry. She paced around their quarters, her hands shaking. "Why did you not say anything?" she demanded. "Why did you let them treat you like that?" Taeho sat quietly on the couch. He watched her with patient eyes. "They are not worth my words," he said simply. "But they insulted you. They pushed you." "Yes. And you felt nothing?" Taeho was quiet for a moment. Then he stood up and walked to her. He took her hands in his. "I felt many things," he said softly, "but I chose not to act on them. There is a difference between feeling and acting. I learned this long ago." Ravana stared at him. There was something in his voice that she had never heard before. A weight, a warning. "Who were you, Taeho?" she whispered. "Before you came here. Before you became a cargo worker. Who were you really?" He looked at her for a long time. His eyes held secrets that she could not read. "Someone I never want to be again," he finally said. Then he kissed her forehead and went to make dinner. Ravana stood there alone, her mind full of questions. She loved her husband. She trusted him completely. But in that moment, she realized something important. She did not truly know him at all. The trade summit came once every 5 years. It was the biggest event on Harmony Point. Diplomats, merchants, and leaders from across the galaxy gathered to make deals and sign treaties. Security was tight. Guards stood at every corner. Ships were checked before they could dock. Everyone believed the station was safe. Ravana had been preparing for this summit for months. It was her most important assignment. She would be leading the negotiations between the Valoran Empire and 3 other major powers. If successful, it would bring peace to a region that had known only war. "I might be late tonight," she told Taeho on the morning of the summit. "The meetings could go on for hours." Taeho nodded. He handed her a cup of tea. "I will wait for you. You always do." She smiled and kissed his cheek. "What will you do today?" "Work. Then I will prepare something special for dinner. To celebrate your success." Ravana laughed. "You are very confident in me. I have always been confident in you." She left for the summit hall with warmth in her heart. No matter how stressful her work became, Taeho was always there. Steady, calm, reliable. The summit began well. Leaders gathered in the Great Hall, a massive room with glass walls that showed the stars outside. Ravana stood at the center table, presenting her proposals with skill and grace. The other diplomats listened carefully. Even those who disagreed with her showed respect. Hours passed. Progress was slow, but real. By midday, 3 small agreements had been signed. By afternoon, talks had begun on the larger issues. Then the lights went out. For a moment, there was only darkness and confusion. Voices called out in alarm. Then the emergency lights flickered on, painting everything in dim red. "What is happening?" someone shouted. The answer came in the form of explosions. The doors of the great hall burst inward. Armed figures rushed through, wearing black armor and carrying weapons that glowed with deadly energy. They moved fast and with purpose. Within seconds, they had surrounded the diplomats. "Nobody move," a voice commanded. The leader of the attackers stepped forward. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and black eyes. He wore a mask that covered the lower half of his face. In his hand, he held a curved blade that crackled with electricity. "My name is not important," he said calmly. "What is important is that you all do exactly as I say. If you obey, some of you might live. If you resist, all of you will die." Panic filled the room. Some diplomats tried to run. The raiders shot them down without hesitation. Their bodies fell to the floor, and nobody moved again. Ravana stood frozen. Her heart pounded in her chest. She had been trained for many situations, but nothing like this. These were not criminals looking for money. These were killers. "The Valoran diplomat," the leader said, pointing at her. "You will come with me." 2 raiders grabbed her arms. She did not resist. She could not. All around her, she saw the bodies of colleagues she had known for years. She saw the fear in the eyes of those still alive. "What do you want?" she managed to ask. The leader smiled behind his mask. "Many things. But for now, you are our guarantee. The Valoran Empire will pay greatly to have you returned safely. Or they will watch you die. The choice is theirs." The raiders gathered all the surviving diplomats into the center of the room. They bound their hands and forced them to kneel. Guards who had tried to fight back lay dead at the doors. No help was coming. Meanwhile, in the cargo bays, Tejo felt something wrong. He had been moving boxes when the lights flickered. He had heard distant explosions. Now, alarms were ringing throughout the station, and armed raiders were everywhere. "Stay down," a raider shouted at the cargo workers. "On your knees, all of you." The workers obeyed. They knelt on the cold metal floor with their hands behind their heads. The raiders moved among them, checking for weapons, looking for anyone who might cause trouble. One of them stopped in front of Tejo. "Human," the raider said with disgust. "Weak little human. What are you doing so far from your planet?" Tejo said nothing. He kept his eyes on the floor. The raider laughed. "Look at me when I speak to you." Tejo looked up. His face was calm, empty, pathetic. The raider spat. He moved on to the next worker. Tejo remained still. But inside, his mind was working quickly. He counted the raiders. He noted their weapons. He studied their movements. And he thought about Ravana. She was at the summit. The summit hall was the main target. His wife was in danger. Something inside Tejo began to stir. Something he had buried deep, long ago. Something dark and cold and very, very patient. He pushed it down. Not yet. Not here. Too many raiders. Too many innocent people who could get hurt. He waited. Hours passed. The raiders kept the cargo workers prisoner, while their leaders negotiated with station security. Demands were made. Threats were given. The situation grew more tense with each passing minute. Then one of the raiders received a message on his communicator. His expression changed. "The boss wants more hostages," he announced. "Valuable ones. Check these workers. Find anyone connected to important people." The raiders began questioning the prisoners. Name, job, family connections. When they reached Tejo, he gave simple answers. Name, Tejo. Job, cargo handler. Family? Tejo hesitated. The raider noticed. "I asked you a question, human. Family. I have a wife. Who is she? Tahoe did not answer. The raider grabbed his collar and pulled him up. I said, Who is she? Another raider walked over with a data pad. He had been checking records. This one is married to Ravana, the Valoran diplomat. The first raider's eyes went wide. Then he laughed. The diplomat's husband? This pathetic creature? He looked at Tahoe with new interest. Well, you just became very valuable. They dragged Tahoe to his feet. They pushed him through the corridors toward the summit hall. All around him, the station was in chaos. Fires burned. Bodies lay where they had fallen. The raiders had complete control. When they reached the summit hall, Tahoe saw his wife. Ravana knelt with the other hostages, her hands bound behind her back. Her face was pale but determined. When she saw him, her eyes filled with fear. Tahoe, she cried out. No. The raiders threw him to the floor in front of her. We found your husband, the leader said, walking over to them. Such a touching reunion. Ravana stared at Tahoe with desperate eyes. Please. He is nobody. He is just a cargo worker. Let him go. The leader laughed. Nobody? He is your weakness, diplomat. He is how we will control you. He gestured to his men. They pulled Tahoe up and threw him against a wall. Then one of them hit him across the face. Tahoe fell. Blood ran from his lip. Stop, Ravana screamed. Please stop. Tell your empire to pay, the leader said coldly. Or we will hurt him more. Then we will hurt you. Then we will kill you both. Tahoe lay on the floor. His face was pressed against the cold metal. His blood dripped slowly onto the ground, but his eyes were open, and for the first time in years, they were completely empty. Not empty like before. Not the calm emptiness of a man who chose peace. This was different. This was the emptiness of something waking up. Something that had slept for a very long time. The raiders did not notice. They were too busy celebrating their victory. They had captured a station. They had taken important hostages. They believed they had won. They did not see Tahoe's fingers move slightly against the floor. They did not see him counting them again. 14 raiders in the hall. 8 near the doors. 6 watching the hostages. They did not see him studying the layout of the room. The positions of the guards. The distance to the nearest weapon. Most importantly, they did not see the look in his eyes when he glanced at his wife. It was not the look of a frightened cargo worker. It was the look of something much older, much darker, much more dangerous. Ravana saw it. For just a moment, their eyes met. And in that moment, she saw a stranger looking back at her. Then Tahoe blinked, and the look was gone. He lay still on the floor, bleeding and broken, but inside, he was making a decision he had hoped he would never have to make again. The night cycle came to Harmony Point. The station's lights dimmed to simulate darkness, but there was no peace. Raiders patrolled every corridor. Fires still burned in some sections. The hostages in the summit hall sat in exhausted silence, waiting for a rescue that might never come. Tahoe had been moved to a corner of the hall. His hands were bound, and a guard stood nearby watching him. The raiders saw him as nothing more than leverage against Ravana. A weak human to threaten, a tool to use. They did not watch him closely. This was their first mistake. Tahoe sat with his head down, appearing defeated. But his mind was clear. He had been studying everything for hours. He knew how many raiders there were. He knew their patrol patterns. He knew where every hostage sat and where every exit led. He also knew something the raiders did not. Beneath the false bottom of a storage container in his quarters, there was a long wooden box. Inside that box was something he had not touched in 7 years, something he had carried across the stars when he fled Earth. Something he had sworn never to use again. His blade. The sword had been in his family for generations. It was old, older than most civilizations in the galaxy. It was not made of ordinary metal. It was forged from something ancient, something that held an edge no matter how many times it was used. It had no decorations, No jewels. No fancy handles. It was simple, and plain, and perfect, and it had tasted more blood than Taeho could remember. He had buried that life. He had become a different person. A quiet person. A peaceful person. He had believed that chapter was closed forever, but some chapters refused to stay closed. Around midnight, the raider guarding Taeho received a call on his communicator. There was a problem in another section. He needed to leave for a few minutes. Do not move, he warned Taeho. If you try anything, we will kill your wife first. Taeho nodded weakly. The guard left. For 30 seconds, Taeho did not move. He counted silently in his head, measuring the time. Then, slowly, he began to work on his bindings. The raiders had used standard restraints, strong enough for most prisoners. But Taeho's hands had been trained for precision work. Not cargo work. Something else entirely. Within 2 minutes, his wrists were free. He did not run. Not yet. He waited for the right moment. It came when 2 guards began arguing near the main door. Their attention shifted away from the prisoners. In that instant, Taeho moved. He slipped through the shadows along the wall. He moved without sound, without breath. The other hostages did not even see him go. One moment, he was there. The next, he was gone. In the corridor outside, a raider stood alone. He was looking at a data pad, distracted. Taeho came up behind him like smoke. There was a soft sound. The raider slumped to the ground. Taeho took his weapon and his communicator. Then he disappeared into the darkness of the station. The journey to his quarters took 15 minutes. He avoided 12 patrols. He moved through maintenance tunnels and access ways that most people did not know existed. He had memorized the station's layout years ago. Just in case, when he reached his home, everything was dark. The raiders had searched it earlier, looking for valuables. They had torn through drawers and broken furniture, but they had not found the hidden compartment beneath the floor. Taeho knelt beside the storage container. He pressed his hand against a specific spot. A panel slid open. Inside was the wooden box. He lifted it carefully. It was lighter than he remembered, or perhaps he was stronger now. Either way, it felt right in his hands. He opened the box. The blade lay on a bed of silk. Even in the darkness, it seemed to glow with its own light. The metal was dark gray, almost black, with patterns that moved like water when he tilted it. Taeho stared at it for a long moment. 7 years. For 7 years, he had not held this sword. He had promised himself he never would again. He had built a new life. A peaceful life. He had become someone different, but Ravana was in danger. The woman he loved was being held by killers who would not hesitate to hurt her. And he was the only one who could save her. He reached into the box and wrapped his fingers around the handle. The moment he touched it, something changed. The weight of the sword felt familiar. Natural. Like an extension of his own body. Memories flooded through him. Training sessions in mountain temples. Battles fought in rain and snow. The faces of men he had killed. The screams. The silence afterward. He had been the best. The absolute best. There was no one in all of Earth's history who could match him with a blade. He had earned many names. The Silent Storm. The Ghost of the Mountains. The Last Sword. He had killed so many people that he stopped counting. Then one day, he looked at himself in a mirror and did not recognize the person staring back. He saw only death. He saw a monster. So he ran. He left Earth. He sold everything he owned. He found a small job on a space station, far from anyone who knew his name. He became a cargo worker. He became invisible. And then he met Ravana. She saw something in him that he had believed was gone forever. She saw kindness. She saw gentleness. She saw a man worth loving. For her, he had buried the blade. For her, he would unbury it. Taeho lifted the sword and held it before him. The weight settled into his muscles. His stance shifted without thought. His breathing slowed. His heartbeat dropped to a steady rhythm. The cargo worker was gone. In his place stood something else. Something that had been sleeping for 7 years. Something the galaxy had never seen. He walked to the door of his quarters. Before he left, he looked back at the home he had built with Ravana. The plants on the windowsill. The pictures on the walls. The small kitchen where he had cooked so many meals. "I will come back," he whispered, "and I will bring her with me." Then, he stepped into the corridor. The first raider he encountered did not even see him. One moment the corridor was empty. The next, there was a flash of dark metal. The raider fell without making a sound. Tejo moved on. He flowed through the station like water through cracks. He made no noise. He left no trace except for the bodies he left behind. Each kill was clean and precise. No wasted movement. No hesitation. He was not angry. He was not afraid. He felt nothing at all, except a cold, clear purpose. Save Ravana. Kill anyone who stood in the way. The raiders had communications. They should have noticed when their patrols stopped responding. But Tejo was faster than their systems. By the time they realized something was wrong, he had already cut through half of their forces. "We have a problem," one raider reported to the leader. "Patrols in Section 7 are not responding." The leader frowned. "Send someone to check." The someone never came back. "Section 5 is down," another raider said, his voice rising with fear. "Section 3. No response. Section 9. Everyone is gone." The leader looked around the summit hall. His confident expression had changed. Something was wrong. Something was hunting his men. "Lock down all doors," he commanded. "Pull everyone back to this room. Now." But it was too late. The lights in the corridor outside flickered, then they went dark. In the summit hall, the hostages looked up in confusion. The raiders raised their weapons, pointing them at the shadows. "Who is there?" the leader shouted. "Show yourself." Silence. Then a voice came from the darkness. Quiet. Calm. Cold. "You hurt my wife." The leader's eyes went wide. He recognized that voice. The cargo worker. The pathetic human they had beaten and mocked. "Find him," he screamed. "Kill him." 3 raiders ran toward the corridor. None of them came back. The remaining raiders formed a circle around the hostages. Their weapons were ready. Their hands were shaking. And somewhere in the darkness, Tejo waited. Ravana stared at the shadows with wide eyes. She knew that voice. It was her husband's voice. But it sounded different. Harder. Colder. She remembered the stranger she had seen in his eyes earlier. The stranger who had looked back at her for just a moment. Now she understood. Her husband was not a cargo worker. He never had been. The summit hall had become a fortress of fear. 20 raiders remained, and they had pulled back to form a tight circle around the hostages. Their weapons pointed outward at the dark corridors. Their eyes searched the shadows for movement. The leader stood at the center, his blade crackling with electricity. His confidence was gone. Something was hunting his men. Something that moved like a ghost and killed without sound. "He is just one human," the leader said, trying to calm his forces. "One weak, pathetic human. We have weapons. We have numbers. We cannot lose to him." But his voice shook as he spoke. In the corridors around the hall, the lights had all gone dark. Emergency power kept only the summit hall lit. Beyond its doors was nothing but blackness. Then they heard it. Footsteps. Slow. Steady. Coming closer. Everyone turned toward the main entrance. The footsteps stopped just outside the circle of light. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then Tejo stepped into view. He looked different. His cargo worker clothes were stained with blood. His face was calm, almost peaceful. In his hand, he held a sword unlike anything the aliens had ever seen. It was dark as night and seemed to drink in the light around it. "Who are you?" the leader demanded. Tejo did not answer. He simply looked at the raiders, counting them. Then his eyes found Ravana. She stared at him with a mixture of fear and wonder. This was her husband. The man who made her tea every morning. The man who tended their garden and cooked her dinner. But right now, he looked like someone else entirely. Let them go, Taeho said quietly. His voice carried through the hall without effort. Let them all go. And I will let you live. The leader laughed, but there was no humor in it. You will let us live? You are one man with a primitive weapon. We have energy guns. We have armor. You cannot possibly think you can win. I do not think, Taeho said. I know. The leader's eyes narrowed. Kill him. 5 raiders opened fire. What happened next was impossible. Taeho moved. Not ran. Not dodged. He simply moved, like smoke shifting in the wind. The energy blasts passed through where he had been, hitting nothing but empty air. Before anyone could react, he was among them. His blade sang. The first raider fell before he even knew he was under attack. The second turned to shoot, but Taeho was already past him. A line of red appeared across the raider's chest. He dropped his weapon and collapsed. 3 more tried to surround him. Taeho spun between them like a dancer. His movements were beautiful in their precision. Every cut was exact. Every step was calculated. He wasted nothing. In 4 seconds, 5 raiders were down. The others opened fire from a distance. The hall filled with the sound of energy weapons and the smell of burning air. But Taeho was not there. He was never where they aimed. He flowed between the shots like water around stones. He closed the distance with impossible speed. 2 more fell. Then 3 more. The hostages watched in stunned silence. They had never seen anything like this. No species in the known galaxy fought like this. It was not combat. It was art. The leader screamed at his remaining men. Together. Stay together. Do not let him separate you. The surviving raiders pulled into a tight group. 8 of them remained, including the leader. They kept their weapons raised, their backs to each other. Taeho stopped. He stood 10 meters away, his sword dripping red. His breathing was slow and even. He had not spoken a word during the fight. He had simply killed. What are you? The leader whispered. Taeho tilted his head slightly. I am her husband, he said. Then he moved again. This time, the raiders were ready. They fired together, creating a wall of energy that nothing could pass through. For a moment, it seemed like they might actually stop him, but Taeho did not try to pass through. He went around. He ran up the wall. The raiders stared in disbelief as he defied gravity itself. He pushed off the wall at an impossible angle, flying over their heads. Before they could adjust their aim, he was behind them. His blade cut through armor like paper. 2 fell. The others spun to face him, but he was already moving again. He ducked under a shot, rolled past a thrust, and came up inside their guard. At this range, their weapons were useless. His blade was not. 3 more fell. Now, only 3 remained, the leader and 2 of his best fighters. Rush him, the leader commanded. All at once, the 2 fighters charged. They were big and fast, trained killers who had fought in a dozen wars. They attacked from both sides, trying to trap Taeho between them. It did not matter. Taeho moved between them like a ghost. His sword traced silver arcs in the air. First one fighter fell, then the other. The entire exchange took less than 2 seconds. The leader was alone. He held his electric blade before him, his hand trembling. All his men were dead or dying. All his plans had failed. And before him stood a small, quiet human, with blood on his sword. Wait, the leader said. We can negotiate. I have money. Power. I can give you anything you want. Taeho walked toward him slowly. I want nothing from you. Please, I surrender. I will leave. I will never come back. Just let me live. Taeho stopped an arm's length away. He looked at the leader with those empty eyes. You hurt my wife, he said quietly. You threatened to kill her. You made her afraid. The leader backed away until he hit a wall. I did not hurt her. I did not touch her. Please. I did not do anything to her directly. You made her afraid, Taeho repeated. That is enough. He raised his blade. No. Wait. What kind of human are you? Humans are weak. Humans are nothing. How can you do this? Taeho paused. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Not mercy, not hesitation. Just a brief moment of thought. My people have a saying, he said softly. The sharpest blade is the one that never needs to be drawn. I spent 7 years being that blade. I stayed quiet. I stayed peaceful. I let others insult me and push me because I knew that drawing my sword would mean death. He took a breath. But you took my wife. You threatened her life. You forced me to become what I used to be. He stepped closer. So I will tell you what kind of human I am. I am the kind that should have stayed buried. I am the kind that your galaxy has never seen and should never see again. I am the last of a line of warriors that ruled Earth for 1,000 years. His voice dropped to a whisper. I am the storm, and you woke me up. The blade fell. When it was over, Taeho stood alone among the fallen. His sword hung at his side, dark and dripping. The summit hall was silent except for the soft sounds of the surviving hostages. He turned to face them. Some looked at him with fear, some with awe, some with confusion. They had just watched a single human destroy 20 armed raiders in less than 3 minutes, but Taeho did not care about them. He walked to where Ravana knelt. He dropped to his knees before her and gently cut her bindings with his blade. Are you hurt? He asked softly. His voice had changed again. The cold was gone. He sounded like her husband once more. Ravana stared at him. Tears ran down her silver face. Her hands were shaking. Taeho, she whispered. What are you? He looked at her with sad eyes, eyes full of guilt and pain and love. I am your husband, he said. That is all I ever wanted to be. Then he took her in his arms and held her as the security forces finally arrived. 3 days passed after the attack on Harmony Point. The station slowly returned to normal. Fires were put out. Bodies were removed. Damaged sections were repaired. Security forces investigated everything, trying to understand what had happened and how one man had killed so many raiders alone. Taeho spent those 3 days in a medical center, not because he was hurt, but because the authorities wanted to keep him somewhere while they decided what to do with him. Ravana visited him every hour. She would sit beside his bed and stare at him. Sometimes she asked questions. Sometimes she just looked at him in silence. The man she had married, the quiet cargo worker who made her tea, was not who she thought he was. On the 3rd day, she finally found the words. Tell me everything, she said. I need to know who you are. Who you really are. Taeho looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. I was born in a small village in the mountains of Korea, he began. My family had guarded that village for generations. We were sword keepers. Protectors. It was our duty to learn the old ways, the ancient fighting styles that our ancestors had perfected over thousands of years. He paused, gathering his thoughts. I started training when I was 4 years old. Every day, from sunrise to sunset, I practiced with the blade. By the time I was 12, I was better than my teachers. By 16, there was no one in my country who could match me. By 20, I had killed my first man. Ravana listened in silence. There were people who wanted to use my skills. Taeho continued. Governments. Criminals. Organizations that worked in the shadows. They offered me money, power, anything I wanted. I refused them all. But they did not take no for an answer. His eyes grew distant. They came to my village. They killed my family. They destroyed everything I loved. So I found them. All of them. And I killed them. Every single one. He closed his eyes. After that, I had no home, no family, no purpose. I wandered Earth for years, taking jobs that required my skills. I became famous in certain circles. The Silent Storm. They called me. When governments needed a problem to disappear, they called me. When wars needed to end quietly, they called me. How many? Ravana whispered. How many people did you kill? Taeho opened his eyes. There was deep sadness in them. I stopped counting after 500. Ravana felt her breath catch. 500 lives. Her husband. The man who watered plants and hummed while cooking had ended 500 lives. One day, I looked at myself, Tejo said. I saw what I had become. I was no longer a protector. I was just a killer. There was nothing left of the boy who had trained in the mountains. There was only death. He took a shaky breath. So I left Earth. I sold everything. I bought passage on a cargo ship to the farthest corner of the galaxy. I found Harmony Point, a place where nobody knew my name. I got a simple job. I built a simple life. I buried my blade and swore never to use it again. And then you met me, Ravana said softly. Tejo nodded. You were the first person who made me feel human again. Not a weapon. Not a killer. Just a man. With you, I could be someone different. Someone better. Tears fell from his eyes. Ravana had never seen him cry before. I wanted to tell you, he said. Every day, I wanted to tell you the truth. But I was afraid. Afraid you would look at me differently. Afraid you would see the monster I used to be. Afraid I would lose you. Ravana reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were cold, but her grip was strong. I do not see a monster, she said. Tejo looked at her in surprise. I see a man who walked through darkness and chose to find the light. I see a man who could have kept killing but chose to stop. I see a man who only raised his sword again to protect the person he loves. She squeezed his hand tighter. You are not a monster, Tejo. Monsters do not feel guilt. Monsters do not cry. Monsters do not spend 7 years trying to become better people. Tejo stared at her. Hope flickered in his eyes, fragile and uncertain. You are not afraid of me? He asked. Ravana smiled sadly. I am a little afraid. But not of you. I am afraid of what you had to become to save us. I am afraid of the pain you carry inside. But I am not afraid of the man I married. That man is still here. I can see him. She leaned forward and pressed her forehead against his. You are my husband, she whispered. That has not changed. That will never change. For a long moment, they stayed like that. Two people from different worlds, connected by something stronger than fear or doubt. The news of what happened spread quickly through the galaxy. A single human had defeated an entire raider force. 20 armed killers, taken down by one man with a sword. It was impossible. It was unbelievable. But the evidence was clear. Other species began to look at humans differently. Before, humans had been seen as weak, small, unimportant. They came from a young planet on the edge of known space. They had no powerful weapons, no advanced technology, no great empire. They were considered harmless. Now, questions were being asked. If one quiet cargo worker could do this, what else were humans capable of? How many other humans carried hidden skills, hidden pasts, hidden strength? What would happen if humanity ever decided to stop being peaceful? The Valoran Council summoned Ravana to give her report. She stood before them and told the truth. My husband is not typical of his species, she explained. He was trained from childhood in ancient combat arts. His skills are rare even among humans. But he was just a cargo worker, one counselor said. He hid what he was. He pretended to be weak. Yes. Why? Ravana thought about the question. Then she answered carefully. Because true strength is not about showing power. It is about choosing when to use it. My husband chose peace. For 7 years, he chose to be quiet, to be gentle, to be kind. He only became a warrior again when there was no other choice. The counselor leaned forward. And what does this tell us about humanity? Ravana looked at them steadily. It tells us that we should never make humans choose. Because when they have to choose, they can become something the galaxy is not ready for. The council was silent. Tejo was released from the medical center. The authorities decided not to charge him with anything. He had killed raiders who had attacked the station. He had saved dozens of hostages. Whatever his past was, his actions that day were justified. He and Ravana returned to their small quarters. The raiders had damaged much of it, but the basic structure remained. They would rebuild. That first night home, Tejo stood by the window and looked out at the stars. Ravana came to stand beside him. "What will you do now?" she asked. "I do not know," he admitted. "I cannot go back to being just a cargo worker. People know my face. They know what I did. Does that bother you?" He thought about it. "Not as much as I expected. Perhaps it is time to stop hiding." Ravana took his hand. "Whatever you decide, I will be with you." Tae-ho turned to look at her. The woman he loved. The woman who had seen everything he was and chosen to stay. "I have a question," he said. "What is it?" "You said you are not afraid of me. But you watched me kill 20 people. You saw what I can do. How can you not be afraid?" Ravana smiled. It was a soft, warm smile that reminded him why he had fallen in love with her. "Because I know why you did it," she said. "You did not enjoy the killing. You did not want it. You did it because you had no other choice. And when it was over, you came to me. Not to celebrate. Not to brag. You came to make sure I was safe." She reached up and touched his face. "A monster would not have done that. A monster would not have cared. But you cared. You have always cared. That is why I am not afraid." Tae-ho felt something release inside him. Something he had been carrying for years. It did not disappear entirely. It never would. But it became lighter. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For seeing me. The real me." Even after everything, Ravana kissed him gently. "I have always seen you," she said, "from the very beginning." They stood together by the window, looking out at the endless stars. Behind them was darkness and blood, and a past that could never be erased. Before them was uncertainty and challenge and a galaxy that now looked at humanity with new eyes. But in that moment, none of it mattered. They were together. They were alive. They were home. And Tae-ho finally understood something he had searched for all his life. Silence was not weakness. Silence was control. And true strength was not the ability to kill. It was the ability to choose not to.